Oh, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes, and I thank you very much for allowing me to take over your senses for a little bit. Well, at least one, maybe two senses at a time. Not more than two, I promise. You know, if your olfactory senses start getting overloaded, it might not be my fault, or at least something's happening with technology that is completely out of my control. But hey, look, we're here to talk professional wrestling right now on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. That's what we do. So first of all, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, video on demand, I thank you very much. That's very much appreciated. Consider giving a like to the video. That stuff, I can't tell you how much it helps grow the channel. It's a big sign of support. Give it a like right now. I appreciate it a great deal. And if it's your first time here, consider becoming a subscriber to the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Just click subscribe. That way you won't miss a thing moving forward. And if you want to show a little more support, you can always become a member of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel. It's a very small amount per month, and then you get some extra content. I'll have some extra content out. I have tons of stuff that I wasn't able to cover on the show today. So it'll be out there for members only. So do become a member of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel. That's a little something that you can do to show some support, and leave a comment as well on YouTube. I love talking about wrestling, so tell me about what's going on. Look, there's stuff with Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker, Sammy Guevara and Eddie Kingston. You've got opinions. You've got opinions on this. I don't believe you don't have an opinion on it. Let me know what you think, and I'll chat back with you. I love talking about wrestling. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast application, again, thank you very much. I can't tell you enough. I can't stress it enough. Consider leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or a 5-star rating on Spotify. Again, just little things that you can do, tiny, minuscule little things, but that mean a lot and really do help grow the podcast. So thank you all very much. Look, we're going to get right into it right now. Just before we do, join the Mr. Warren Hayes Discord if you want to continue talking about pro wrestling. Link is in the description. Now we're going to start the show off. We're going to get things going here. And boy, we're covering a lot of stuff here. We're gonna go up. We're gonna start straight off the bat talking about Dynamite, because there's a lot of AEW news that all seems to tie into Dynamite as well. So we're gonna do that. Of course, we're talking about Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker and Eddie Kingston and Sammy Guevara. Of course, we're talking about CM Punk and Jon Moxley. We're gonna talk about Johnny Gargano, and maybe at the end NWA 74. Well, you'll have to stick around to find out, or fast forward to the end. But, maybe try and listen to everything else in the meantime, too. Oh, it's a good one. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Let's get to it. Let's kick off these wonderful festivities by saying something nice about Bill Goldberg.
Warren Hayes has 52 nice things to say about Goldberg.
It's wild to say this in 2022, but it's true. Bill Goldberg would be an upgrade if he were to be inserted in the NWA 74 main event.
Warren Hayes has 52 nice things to say about Goldberg.
Isn't that crazy, though? Isn't that wild? When you think about it, there is actually a match that you could throw Goldberg in, and you'd be like, clear upgrade in 2022. Just bananas. This is the wild world of wrestling that we live in 2022. And tonight we have a lot of wrestling to talk about. I'm going to start. We're going to talk about all the big AEW news that happened this week. There's been all the drama. We're going to be talking about it. The Thunder Rosa stuff, the Eddie Kingston, Sammy Guevara stuff. We're going to talk about Mox and CM Punk, the CM Punk the drama. We're talking about Johnny Gargano as well. We're going to talk about a bunch of things. So we're leading in tonight with the AEW Dynamite review on the Weekly Wrestling Inspection. You know what? DGM's in the chat. Goldberg versus Tim Storm actually has something to it. That has some teeth. There's something there. As long as they don't try to lift each other too much and, accidentally drop each other on their heads. For real though, I agree. There's something to this idea of Bill Goldberg versus Tim Storm that I'm not turned off about. Good call. So let's start right off the bat this week with the AEW Dynamite recap / review, which I usually do at the end of the show. But since everything ties in, to Dynamite, might as well go with it, and then we'll just tackle the topics as we get there. How about that? We're going to start the show with the same way Dynamite started, with the promo. Now, okay, so if you are anything, if you're even remotely close to my pet peeves in pro wrestling, you know that one of the top ones is sitting down to watch a wrestling show and then having it start for some reason with a promo segment as opposed to a wrestling match. And I've hammered it multiple times, right? The idea of having the idea of starting with a promo when I should be getting wrestling isn't exactly, to me, it's counterintuitive. It's counterproductive. I sit down in front of my TV, give me an exciting match. And one of the good things about Dynamite is that they have this routine, they have a tradition, right? Where they start off with a hot match, they finish with a hot match. And instead we get fucking Chris Jericho coming to the ring. Now, this is what? The second week in a row, third week in a row, second week in a row, where we start with a promo. There will always be exceptions to this rule, right? There will always be exceptions. When there is something very important that has to be conveyed from the get-go with a promo, I can understand it, especially if it has an incidence on the rest of the show, or like last week, the opening promo was so very important. So I was like, okay, I get that. I will defer oftentimes to when Jon Moxley returned came back from rehab. That's the first thing they had him do, jump in the ring, cut a promo. It makes sense. CM Punk comes back, first thing he does is cut a promo. You start with that. I mean, there are legitimate reasons to start with it. Now, Chris Jericho starting Dynamite to chat with Daniel Garcia is not exactly crucial information that I feel I need to have covered from the onset of the first quarter hour. Does that make sense? Don't get me wrong, and I'm going to talk about it. I thought the segment was very good, but I don't think we needed it straight out the gate. It was a little weird to me. I legitimately think you could have switched the Lethal Dax match with the opening promo, and no harm would have befallen anything. I don't think that the Garcia angle would have been less impactful. I think this was just, look, it's a question of taste at this point, right? But I've become adverse to opening promos absolutely because of WWE. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it. It is absolutely because of WWE. Spending all these years starting with 8, 9, 10-minute promos every fucking week, every fucking show, because there's 2 to 3 shows a week. But it's okay, Criticism. That's a criticism. I didn't like it. I don't like it. I was like, maybe, I'm hoping Chris Jericho has something earth-shattering to announce us, But no, he's got nothing. He's just like, I want Daniel Garcia to apologize. I'm like, why are we starting with this? Anyway. He hits the ring and he asks Garcia to apologize to him, when Garcia hits the ring as well. And Garcia comes out with the Dragon Slayer graphics, not the JAS thing. And the audience chants what they were chanting to Daniel Garcia in that extraordinary match of the year that he had last week with Bryan Danielson. They were chanting, what? You're a wrestler. They're into it. This angle is connecting. Garcia's connecting. He says, Garcia tells Jericho that the match that he had with Danielson last week was the kind of match he always dreamt of having as he was watching TV as a kid in Buffalo with his mom. And when Bryan stuck out his hand and asked him for some respect, right? He didn't care if people called him a sports entertainer or a wrestler. All he cared about right then and there was for that moment, for his hero to shake his hand. And Jericho, this is what Daniel Garcia said, Jericho ruined that moment for him. Jericho says he's sorry. He's sorry Garcia feels that way, which is, not an apology. But he says there'll be tons of moments like that because he is the greatest technical sports entertainer in the world. And deep down inside, Dan Garcia knows he's a sports entertainer. And Jericho starts to egg him on. He says, I want you to say it. Say it. Say you're a sports entertainer. Bryan Danielson comes out. He has a microphone and he says, look, you've got your mentor, Chris Jericho here, telling you that, bullying you into saying that you're a sports entertainer. And that he loved the match they put on last week. He respects Dan Garcia. And everyone here in the audience agrees that Daniel Garcia is a wrestler. Garcia is clearly confused. Like he is the, mom and dad are having a divorce and, they're asking him to pick and he doesn't know what to do. And Jericho keeps insisting and he shoves Jericho to the mat, right? And so he leaves. This leads to a face-off between Jericho and Danielson. Danielson says that he's not the biggest fan of sports entertainment, but this was pretty sports entertaining. Jericho is annoyed when people say that Danielson is the greatest wrestler in the world today because, when they talk about Chris Jericho, they talk about how great he is at reinvention and keeping himself relevant, so on and so forth. But he's the last survivor of Stu Hart's dungeon. This is, I guess, one of the new arrows that he has in his quiver. And he remembers every hold he's been taught, and he's forgotten more about wrestling than Bryan Danielson will ever remember. Danielson asks him if he were able to ask Stu Hart or Owen Hart which of the two between he and Jericho are better, what would they say? This, of course, it's the ooh, I can't believe he went there kind of thing. So basically, this all ends up to Danielson challenging Jericho to a match: American Dragon versus the Lionheart. Jake Hager, the wrestler that everyone keeps telling me that has improved significantly, hits the ring from behind, attacks Danielson. They beat him up, but this sets up a match for next week against Hager before going into the pay-per-view. I thought this segment was very good. I thought this segment was very, very good. I thought it was really well put together. And here's what I liked about it. I think on top of everything, when Jericho came out and Garcia came out, and Jericho was like, okay, this is what we're doing, and I want you to apologize. Apologize to me. Apologize, damn it. I'm like, all right, Garcia's turning. He's going to turn against our boy here, and that'll be the thing. We'll be good. Garcia, BCC bound. Here we go. But when Danielson came out, that threw a little wrench in the plan, because then we're like, okay, this could be a setup. This could be entirely a setup, which it wasn't. But still, what it turned out to be was a segment that has no clear answer for Daniel Garcia. We don't know where he stands. So he could full on go BCC, or he could end up screwing over Bryan Danielson and staying with the JAS, right? Like it legitimately can go either way at this point. And that's what I like about this angle. This is what I like about it. This is how I like how it finished, is that we're going to go into All Out in this match for the custody of Daniel Garcia. we're going to go into this match at All Out, and Garcia is legitimately going to be the wild card here. We don't know what he's going to do. Is he going to go with his hero or his mentor? I think, look, and simple, basic story that took 2 weeks for us to get the full range on. We needed the match last week to set up the stakes this week, and for Danielson to be like, you know what, Jericho, you get on my nerves. And Jericho's like, you know what, you get on my nerves too. There you go. I like it. I really, really like this angle. I'm going to tell you something that I don't like as much. That's it was grating me a little bit, but now it's full on grating me. When Jericho was feuding with Eddie Kingston, right? Remember what Kingston had asked from Jericho for their last match, right? He said, I don't want the sports entertainer, and I want the last survivor of Stu Hart's dungeon. I want the Lionheart. I want the New Japan Cup winner. Like, this is the guy I want. I want the guy to come in and just tear everything down. This is the Chris Jericho I want. Right? And then Chris Jericho's like, yeah, okay. And then he comes out. And then Jericho, for his match with Moxley, sort of channels that energy as well, because Moxley makes the same request. So I'm like, okay, but Chris Jericho's the sports entertainer. Like, that's his thing. That's the whole thing behind his stable, his gimmick right now, is that he's not a wrestler. He's a sports entertainer. But he's going around and he in his match with Moxley was full on throwback. He had the ponytail, he did the thing, and he was wrestling like the Lionheart. So I'm like, okay. And now we're doing this again, where we're bringing back Stu Hart, and it's the Lionheart Chris Jericho versus the American Dragon. And I'm like, Jericho's having it both ways here. He's having it both ways with his wrestling character right now, and I don't dig it. If anything, if he was truly a sports entertainer, and if he really wanted to generate the heel heat, and if he really wanted to piss people off, he'd be like, oh, you want the Lionheart? Well, that's not what you're going to get, because the Lionheart is dead, and it only lives in the minds of you marks out there who sit around watching, my old tapes instead of living in the present, or something like that, Instead, he's doing this. He's getting the best of both worlds. He's calling himself a sports entertainer on one hand, but then he can be goaded into being a wrestler. When there was a whole feud a few months ago where it was like, sports entertainers are better than wrestlers. So why would he want to go back? He could be standing there saying, I was making no money as the Lionheart. I am Chris Jericho, sports entertainer, and I am rich as hell, kind of thing. So it irks me because it goes both ways. Because he dips in both sauces when he should stick to one. It's not like double dipping. Is it like double dipping? Because double dipping is kind of like when when there's one dip for everyone, and you have a crudités, which, by the way, the crudité is very fashionable. I hear these days. And, you have a big plate of crudités, and you have like a ranch dip in the middle, or something with blue cheese, and if you take like a baby carrot and then you dip it in there and you take a bite, nom, 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 and you still have some baby carrot left. And then if you go back and you dip in there, that's double dipping, right? And that's kind of gross. You're not supposed to double dip because you're, you bit into the carrot and you're putting your mouth juice into the dip for everyone to go and screw around with. And that's not cool. You shouldn't do that. It's unsanitary, especially in these COVID times. Don't do that shit. Why am I talking about double dipping? Yes, because Chris Jericho is double dipping like this. So I think the analogy is okay. Because he's going in as a sports entertainer, but then whoops, sports entertainer, munch, munch, munch. Oh, but I'm also a wrestler, munch, munch, munch. Like, it doesn't work, and it just poisons it poisons the dip. It poisons the ranch that is the story. The story, you see how my analogy is working? The story is the ranch. The pro wrestling story is the ranch, and the angle that Chris Jericho is doing for this story is the carrot that you're double dipping in. Anyway, I didn't care. I'm not caring for that. I think we're losing the plot. Kind of like me and my show right now. So there you go. But I enjoyed the first segment, but there was nothing. I feel there was nothing, earth-shattering that absolutely needed to be settled from the onset. Anyway, want to say hello to Anthony Down Under, who is joining us here tonight. Thank you very much from Down Under. And we've got Matt Ritter of the Smacking It Raw podcast, who's here as well. He's going to keep everyone under control. Then after all of this, we had our first match where Jay Lethal defeated Dax Harwood. I thought this was a solid pro wrestling match that really picked up after the commercial. I think we got another really solid wrestling display from Dax the Axe Harwood. Lethal did what Lethal does, not a big fan, but he worked the leg throughout the match, with dragon screws, working into figure fours as well. Dax hits a slingshot Liger bomb, and there's this really dope series of reversals between them both that ends with Dax hitting a springboard body press off of the second rope turnbuckle, which was like, wow, okay. So, Dax going in there and adding some more offense, some more moves to his repertoire, surprising us a little bit here. So I like that. Not that he never flies, but I wasn't expecting such a smooth transition here. So that was pretty cool. But this all comes to an end when Lethal uses the tights to reverse a roll up into a roll up. So this was all a match made to build some heat for their trios match that is going to happen at All Out. FTR and Wardlow taking on Jay Lethal, and everyone was expecting, right? It felt it was kind of like by default. Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, and Satnam Singh, who being the three that would be facing off the baby faces, right? But Sanjay Dutt came out, who I really like. I enjoy the work of Sanjay Dutt. I really do. I think he's a good addition as an on-screen talent. I think he's great, actually. Sanjay Dutt announces that the other two members are not going to be himself and Satnam Singh, who? But it will be the Motor City Machine Guns, Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley, keeping that forbidden door between Impact and AEW wide open. Look, I've got nothing bad to say about this. Nothing. And it's crazy how this level of news is being lost in the entire shuffle, because this is about to turn up. FTR and the Motor City Machine Guns is a match that everyone wants to see, because these are two fantastic teams. Motor City Machine Guns are just one of these that have been around forever. Alex Shelley is, he's one of these wrestling marvels. So I'm excited for this match now. Officially, this is one of the matches on All Out that I'm excited for. Yeah, Thunder Rosa's there. She's not doing well, and she's crying. And she says that she's injured. She's hurt, and she has to step down from being AEW's Women's World Champion. So she will not be defending the title at All Out. And she mentions that she hopes Toni Storm wins the interim title. So we're getting an interim title for the women's title instead of just stripping. And she promises that she'll come back bigger, better, badder, stronger. So went that Daft Punk song, right? So let's start breaking this down a little bit because, as you know, there's a few things to go down here. There's a few things we need to talk about. First and foremost, the interim title is going to be selected, fought for, not defended, but won at All Out. Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, Toni Storm, and Hikaru Shida are going to be the ladies competing for it, and that's going to rule. Like, this is a great title match. This is a great addition to the card. I've got nothing bad to say about it. I think it's a combination of four fantastic women, and the match is going to rule. I have no problems with it. Now, outside of this, once this sort of happened, there were reports that started going around, the stuff going around the up and down here in regards to Thunder Rosa and her standing within the women's division, coming from the flagship podcast specifically. They were saying a number of things in regards to Thunder Rosa and her title and her status backstage. They outright said that she and Britt Baker have a lot of heat that's been stemming for a while now at this point, and that Rosa also has heat with Jamie Hayter, specifically, like they mentioned, specifically the idea of her of Thunder Rosa breaking her nose, right? Which is something that you'd assume that you'd be pissed off at someone if they, sloppied it up and broke your nose. So absolutely. They also added, and this caused a lot of stress. There's a lot of tension backstage in the women's division, and this led to also a couple of extra details here. One which I feel is unnecessary, and for the record, I'm just gonna put it out there. But one that said that Thunder Rosa was hiding in a bathroom stall after the match where Jamie Hayter got injured. That she was hiding out of fear of being beat up, which I'm like, okay, regardless of whether it's true or not, that's unnecessary. That's some weird information to leak. Often I'll tell you guys, news like this, gossip, whatever you want to call it, when it gets leaked to the news sites, it's always because someone has an agenda / axe to grind in some circumstances, right? No one leaks anything if everyone's happy. Right? That's why there was no news ever coming out backstage from the first 18 months of AEW. Probably even into 2 years. We'd have to research here. But I'm pretty confident in saying within the first 18 months of AEW, you didn't hear much, right? You really didn't hear much. You didn't hear anything. Because everyone is happy. It's the new promotion. It's the honeymoon period. Everyone now starting to feel like a wrestling promotion. And people are starting to leak stuff to, get back at people. So the heat, that's interesting. With Thunder and Britt and Jamie Hayter, but Thunder Rosa going to hide in the bathroom stall, that just seems petty. That seems useless and pointless. There's nothing of value there, and it really just feels like someone just adding a little twist to the knife. It's like, by the way, she's a coward. I don't know. I don't know. And there was also the rumor going around that Thunder Rosa said she was injured, but she's not. And that they're using this angle to take her away from TV to let things cool down and have this match set up instead. So, but PW Insider today confirmed, and I'll read the exact report from their website. PWI Insider confirmed that the nature of Thunder Rosa's injury is indeed a disc issue in her back. We were told it was something that she's been trying to work through as of late. There is no timetable for her return. So this is something I think we slightly heard about months ago, probably after she lost the after she won the title. There were reports coming out saying that she had worked injured and so on and so on, and that she's working through an injury. Maybe she just got to a point where she can't do it anymore, where she has to take the time off, right? I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Anyway, so, PW Insider confirmed it, and I think, like Sean Ross Sapp and everyone sort of jumped in and said, yes, we can confirm that she is indeed legitimately injured. Which, the opposite would have been a little strange, But look, it sucks. It really, really does suck that Thunder Rosa has to take time off to deal with an injury. My stance is always the same when it comes to wrestlers being injured. I think it stinks. I want wrestlers to be able to have long, healthy careers doing this insane form of entertainment for me. So when they have to take time off and rehabilitate, get healthy again, that stinks, because it really does stymie a career, especially when you are the AEW Women's Champion, something that you've been working hard for, and yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of like a thing, right? That you don't want to see happen. That's what I'm trying to say. Good job with words, Warren. So we hope she gets back on track. We hope she, takes the time that she needs, and that when she comes back, she's back and better, and that will continue. We'll always have her back here. But the Heat situation here. Look, I don't know, because we have I want to say hi to Retroid Josh, who's in the chat. Nice to see you and welcome. He pulls up a point, about no one ever substantiating the flagship rooms, and that's fine. Yeah. The thing that I want to talk about, as opposed to whether or not Thunder Rosa is throwing her weight around, I've heard that Britt Baker is kind of queen bee in the women's locker room. She feels it's hers, it's her spot. And it's something that happens in wrestling and in most sports locker rooms as well, right? You're going to get a locker room leader. You're going to get someone who's going to be like the pivotal anchor. You don't pivot around anchors. Bad example. Bad choice of words. You don't pivot with anchors. But, the point is that you will have someone who will be de facto like the locker room leader. And I've heard that Britt considers this, it's her space, it's her division. When she goes on TV and says this is my division, the women's division is mine, I sincerely believe that she believes that that's her investment in it, because she is the centerpiece. She has been the centerpiece for the women's division. Ever since she did the heel turn, it's been hers. Now, Thunder Rosa comes in. She also has a reputation of being confrontational. I don't want to say, and let's be clear here. I'm not saying that she's a bully. I'm not saying she throws her weight around, but confrontational, right? And this is an environment in pro wrestling in general where people normally are. And I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. Everyone in this business has an ego. Your favorites have an ego. They all do, because if they don't, they're not going to make it in the business. They're not, if they don't fight and claw. When they say fighting and clawing for everything they have, in promos and stuff like that, it's not always a question of kayfabe and fighting kayfabe. It's often backstage and doing things to make sure that your job is secure, your position is secure, that yes, you play the politics game and so on and so forth. That's the kind of stuff that happens. Now, in the case of Thunder Rosa, I'm not saying this to try and paint a picture that she's a terrible person. Au contraire, because she gives a lot of her time to charity. She believes in women's wrestling. Like she does a lot for wrestling, women's wrestling specifically. But I would not be surprised that she and Britt Baker butt heads. Britt Baker's been there from the start, and we're hearing a lot of that, right? The OGs versus the people coming in trying to take their spots, right? We've heard a lot of that. We hear it a lot on the guys' side. Why would it be so unthinkable on the women's side? I don't think it's improbable that Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa have heat. I don't think it's improbable. I don't think it's improbable to get to this point here where these two highly competitive women who know on top of that in the AEW women's division the spots are limited. Like, you guys know how the AEW women's division is booked, right? You're not blind to this. You see how it goes, right? I talk about it sometimes. So we know that the spots for top women in this company is so very limited. Everyone's jockeying for this. Don't think that everyone's not competing with each other. AEW created this. I don't want to say AEW. I apologize. A strong segment of AEW fans created this perfect world of AEW where everything is rainbows and cookies, and everyone sits around in a sewing circle at the end of every show, and they share their feelings, and everyone's like looking out for each other. And I'm like, look, maybe from the get-go, maybe the first few months in, everyone's excited. They're like, yes, thank God we're not working for Vince. Let's make this work, kind of thing. Probably. I'm sure, But then you start adding more people, and you start adding people who are coming from WWE and who are disenfranchised, and they want to be able to wrestle and do what they want to do as well. But there's already people there who are doing what they want to do because they don't want to go wrestle at WWE because Vince is still there. So now you're starting to get these confrontations, these frictions. It's starting to turn into, guess what? Guess what it's starting to turn into? It's starting to turn into a wrestling locker room. And it's never been a big happy family. It's a business. It's a business where you have your coworkers there. And you will disagree with your coworkers. And there'll probably be people in your department jockeying for your position. And you'll be like, oh, this son of a bitch is coming for me. Not necessarily for me, but for my spot. These things happen. And they particularly happen in pro wrestling. So I feel like there's an entire subset of fans out there who are shattered at the fact, or who don't want to accept that there are people in AEW that don't get along. And I know they exist. Do you want to know why I know they exist? Because when CM Punk a year ago came to AEW, I remember one of the first talking points I had is like, this is weird. And talking points here, putting it out on Twitter. One of the talking points I had was, this is weird. How is this going to be handled with Colt Cabana? Right? I don't want to go through the history of the lawsuits with Colt and the lawyer payment that Phil never followed through on. You can Google all of that stuff if you don't know what I'm talking about. Search Colt Cabana CM Punk lawsuit, okay? And I'm talking about that. And there are people telling me, legitimately, a year ago, well, AEW's different. I think, hopefully, Colt Cabana and CM Punk will be able to let bygones be bygones and will be able to work together. I'm convinced Tony Khan will be able to help them find common ground. And I'm like, yo! CM Punk owes Colt Cabana thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars. You almost ruined him financially. This is not something that you sit around a table with some ice cream and you hash it out. There are legal implications here. There is an element of life ruination. I was like, they're not going to fix this. This is going to be weird. The locker room is going to suffer for this. And look what happened. Colt Cabana gets, first of all, this is what we heard, right? The report, the rumor, that Tony was going to let Colt Cabana's contract run out until the Bucks stepped in and made a case to Tony to keep him on Ring of Honor. Why? Well, because he had big time CM Phil. So, all of this to try and tell you that, there's a difference between saying, I don't want to believe that there's heat versus there might be heat, because I'm going to tell you, the odds that there is some sort of friction, even if it is tiny, even if it's small, is much more probable than the opposite, because that's pro wrestling. They all know this is how the business has been conducted for years, decades. And don't fool yourself, it's the same way in WWE. It's the same way. And if anything, wrestlers in WWE are just better politicians about it. So there's no more fireside sing-alongs in AEW. That time is gone. If it was ever there, it's gone. And I hope I'm not popping too many bubbles of any ultra AEW fans that are listening right now. But this is normal, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. And on top of that, get excited for it, because you know what? It's gonna make the product better. It's going to because everything that happens backstage will eventually make its way on TV in one form or another. I'm not saying necessarily like an angle. I'm not saying that they're going to do a work shoot war. Is that what you're saying? No, what I'm saying is that eventually these things have a tendency to end up on TV in one form or another and can be perfectly in kayfabe, but it helps, it enhances, it makes it better. And we're not thriving off the misery of people. That's not it either. These are people who are playing the game of pro wrestling. They know what they're doing. It's fine. So if Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa have some heat, let them have heat. And let's see what kind of match they can have when Thunder Rosa comes back. Let's see how this can go. Let's see how this can go. I mean, and I'm with you on the bathroom stall stuff and this is like, it's regardless of whether it's true or not, that's bullshit. That doesn't this isn't it's not pertinent. It's not relevant to what we're saying here. It adds nothing. And in fact, it's just character assassination at this point. This is just like putting stuff out there. It's like when WWE releases someone and then suddenly you start hearing the reports of, oh, they were difficult to work with. Difficult to work with is the death knell in wrestling media PR for any wrestler, because you don't want to be branded that. But I told you once, I'll tell you 1,000 times, folks. Your favorite wrestler is difficult to work with. The most famous wrestlers on the planet of all history from the beginning of time have been difficult to work with. It's just that simple. And being difficult to work with one person doesn't necessarily mean that it's difficult to work with 17 others. You just need to piss off that one right person, right? That's all you need to do. You piss off one person, now that person's difficult to work with. And you're done, Next, we had the singles match. Colton Gunn defeated his dad. Now, look, I know there's a ton of you listening, watching right now, and people in the Discord and in the live chat right now that absolutely love the Gun Club Acclaim stuff, and I'm glad this was for you, because it wasn't for me. And I'm surprised that I'm really surprised that this is a flagship angle that runs on Wednesday nights. Because this is very sports entertaining. It's always been, and it doesn't do it for me. But as I'm seeing the pattern now, as I'm seeing how this is playing out, this was clearly to get the Acclaimed over. Tony wants the Acclaimed to get over. Well, you're not going to get over if you keep him on Rampage every night. And it kind of breaks my heart to start talking about this, right? To be there at the to be at this moment where we have to start talking about Rampage as the B show, because don't kid yourselves. Don't kid yourselves. The only time Rampage is really good is when it's a live show. Live Rampage I will not miss. But anything that's taped, the Friday Rampage is the B show, and it's become the Thursday Night Thunder of AEW, and it's something we all kind of feared. That we were like, look, but and everyone was like, oh, but if Tony keeps a good focus on it, well, Tony doesn't. Tony has barely proper focus on his main show sometimes. I mean, Rampage is the B show. We have to stop kidding each other. We have to stop pretending. We really do. But look, whatever happened here, Colton hits the Colt 45. He beats Billy Gunn. Post-match, Stokely Hathaway is there, and he gives the Guns his card, and then they attack Billy Gunn, and then the Acclaimed come out to save him, and then a little later on in the show, the Acclaimed, and then Swerve Their Glory, Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland come to the ring to fend off the villains, the heels, and Swerve Their Glory. A little later on, they have them and the Acclaimed have a segment where they basically set up a match for All Out. That's fine. Again, I'm sure there's people out there who are very excited about this match, and and I will tell you this, because I do see what they're trying to do here. This is Max Caster's and Anthony Bowen's time to shine. These are guys that were brought in as prelim guys, and that's all they were. They were, enhancement dudes who were just there to eat the pins, be obnoxious, entry-level heels that everyone else would destroy to the delight of the crowd. Then the Acclaim started getting itself over. I think for very normal, for very conspicuous reasons. I think they have a good act, being, the new incarnation of the New Age Outlaws. I think that Max Caster is very charismatic, and I love Anthony Bowens. I think Anthony Bowens has a lot of upside. So this is their spot where the booker turns to them and is like, boys, you did everything I asked for you to do. You guys are good. I enjoy what you do. You're reliable. You're great wrestlers. Plus, you're getting over. I'm giving you a spot on the pay-per-view. So I get it. Don't get me wrong. I understand when I do it. And if anything, I'm very, 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 very happy for this trajectory for the Acclaim, because this is the kind of thing that gets lost in the shuffle of all the discussions over poor booking and, short-term vision when it comes to storytelling, so on and so forth. This might not be storytelling, but this is good old-fashioned booking here. This is how you build up someone, and then at some point you're like, well, look, these guys that I had as jobbers are getting themselves over. Let's give them a shot. Let's see what they can do. And knowing both of those dudes, they're just gonna sink their teeth into the match. They're gonna look like $1 million. What are you even talking about? They're gonna do everything they can, and they should. It's gonna be a big time opportunity for them, and they know. They both know. I honestly want more Anthony Bowens on my TV wrestling. That's what I want. We get a segment backstage with the United Empire talking with Death Triangle. They're hyping up the match. Then we get Dr. Britt Baker DMD defeating Kylan King. This was a fine, I thought it was a fine showcase for Kylan King, right? Like, Britt did what she had to do, and I think she was generous enough with her. I don't think it was the moment for Britt to really be like the heel in trouble and then pop out a surprise win at the end. No, like, she's going into a big time match. She has to remind everyone that she's a former champion. She should be able to put Kylan King away. But I thought that Kylan was given stuff here. She was given time to shine. And look, here's a woman who was early on, right, in the dark environment of AEW, and I'm talking about the YouTube show specifically. She was on, like, we'd see her regularly. She was even, a year ago, she was representing AEW with Red Velvet at the Empower pay-per-view. Offered so generously up to us from William Patrick Corgan, and I thought she looked even better than her Toni Storm match last week. Probably she got the nerves out, and she felt a little more at ease. Hometown crowd, of course, that kind of stuff helps, but I think she looked good in this match. So this is someone who was like, AEW goes, no, you know what, we're not gonna keep you on contract. We'll let's talk again in a year or so. Let's see how you're doing. And what does she do? She hits the indies hard. She just goes, right? She just goes hard and works for NWA. She calls up William Patrick Corgan and she says, hey, thank you so much for giving us so generously in Power last year. And she works for them as well. So she's getting experience. She comes back. She's got a year working matches right and left with a ton of people across the country. Good for her, because it shows. Goes back into the Wild, comes back looking more confident, stronger. Good striking game by both women here. Roundhouse kick and a German by Britt Baker. Big slam by Kylan King. But of course, stomp, lockjaw, get the win for our girl, the dentist, the DMD. And the crowd, and I'm glad she leaned into the crowd that was chanting like Pittsburgh sucks, and says, I'm glad she leaned into it. And I was, because I was shouting on my TV, I was like, lean more into it, Britt, go. Don't be a cool heel, be a jerk. After the match, Britt cuts a promo on the baby faces of the four-way. Toni Storm comes out. She gets blindsided by Jamie Hayter. Hikaru Shida then comes out with a kendo stick, chases off the baby face. The heels, excuse me. AEW World Title, Interim Title, Unification match. Jon Moxley defeated CM Punk to become the undisputed AEW World Heavyweight Champion for the second time in under 3 minutes. What the hell is going on? What happened? What is this? Guys, when I tell you about chaos in wrestling, how much fun it is, I popped out of my seat. It was amazing. They fight. The fight starts. And CM Punk goes for a roundhouse kick. And he plants his surgically repaired left foot to spin, to deliver the kick. He's using his right foot to kick, but he's planting his left. He spins. He lands the kick, but collapses on himself, and he's tugging at the ankle. He's going, ow, I am an injured man. My foot, it hurts. What does Jon Moxley do? He doesn't come around, pat him on the back and say, let's try again next week. No, he beats the shit out of him, delivers 2 Death Riders, pins him in, according to Cage Match, 2 minutes and 59 seconds. Yeah, he shouldn't have pivoted on the anchor. There, see? Don't. But that's the point. Is that so? And this is where we're at. And no one knows how to react. Well, we're all, we're excited because we're like, Christ, Jon Moxley, champion, second champion. They're like, everyone loves Jon Moxley, I think. I think really people, sour pusses, don't like Jon Moxley. It's the sour pusses who don't like him. And I don't hang out with sour pusses. But so everyone, the crowd is like, everyone is befuddled. We just had a championship match in 3 minutes. And then, of course, it's like, oh, I hope CM Punk is okay. Of course he's okay. Don't worry. He's fine. He's fine. The gentleman is a worker. And he's a hell of a worker. Trust me. And this is where we're at. So now, obviously here, the question that we have is what's next, right? What do we do? What are we doing moving forward? Because I expounded on my theory last week, right? We talked about it, and I was like, MJF is going to show up, and he's going to cost Punk the match, because there's no bigger match that AEW has in its pocket right now that they can just flip out of a Jon Moxley CM Punk rematch than CM Punk versus MJF. It's legitimately the biggest match that they can just flick on without any build, and people will be like, let's fucking go. You don't have to build this. You just have to do it. So I'm cool with this. But that doesn't happen at all. It doesn't happen even remotely as I thought it was going to happen. We get a new champion, and we still don't have a main event for All Out. According to Dave Meltzer, upstart journalist in the world of wrestling media that perhaps you've heard of, he says here, and I'm reading the article off of the Figure 4 Online website, an AEW World Title rematch between unified champion Jon Moxley and former champion CM Punk is the main event for next Sunday's All Out. Speaking at the beginning of the post-Dynamite Wrestling Observer Radio, Meltzer said the rematch is the main event, but isn't sure if they're adding stipulations or when they'll announce it. He then urged the company to announce the match as soon as possible, while also conceding that the decision to buy pay-per-views is usually a last-minute one, which is something that I also sincerely believe in. I don't necessarily believe in months of build. Most people decide to buy a pape on the same day because it can just boil down to, oh, grandma's here. I guess I won't be watching it. Okay, Germany 96 left a super chat. Thank you very much. He says, poor Moxley didn't even have time to bleed. No, he just like... That's how you know it was a short match. And it's a really short match. Because sometimes Moxley just bleeds out the get-go, right? So he broke the streak. He broke his streak of matches that he bled in. Oh, brother. Thank you very much, AK Germany, for the super chat. Now, so I'm a little shocked at this. I'm not going to lie, because I question, but look, I question the idea of going straight back, running this again 2 weeks after. But we didn't get a match effectively. This was not a match. These dudes didn't fight. This was a 3-minute angle that we got, So it's not like I'm okay with that. If we had a 15-minute, 20-minute match on Dynamite and then we're running it again 2 weeks later, then I'd be like, it's a little weird. I'm not sure about it. But I wouldn't get nervous around this because there was no match. So we're basically starting from fresh, right? I think we're starting anew. And I think that's fine. I'm telling you right now, okay? I'm going to talk more about All Out next week. I'm going to do a preview show with one Matt Ritter from the SmackDown Raw podcast. I'm excited because Matt and I don't always agree when it comes to pro wrestling. And I like that. And I think it's going to make for a compelling... I like Matt a lot. Don't get me wrong. It's not like this son of a bitch. No, imagine that. Two people who have different opinions about pro wrestling and can still get along. Imagine that. We agree on a lot of stuff. But there's some very key metrics in which Matt and I disagree. So keep an eye out for that. That's going to be a fun prediction show, and I'm excited to share that with y'all. And I'm excited to have Matt on to do it. So I will be talking more about this, but especially when it comes to pay-per-view buys, right? And so on and so forth. Because you know what's happening right now, probably. Exactly. There's the weirdo podcasts out there. There's the weirdo pundits out there. All the same gang who have been telling you, who told us all that Forbidden Door was going to fail. You remember those, right? That said that, it's not going to crack 90,000 buys. This is a disaster. No one knows who is on the show. It's going to be a complete shit show, right? When it turned out to be an absolutely excellent show that did fantastic business. You know who I'm talking about. There's a bunch of people out there. Maybe you think I'm talking about a certain person and I don't know who they are. But they're probably out there telling you all that All Out is going to fail because there's no main event that's been announced so far. And I am completely in agreement with Dave when he says pay-per-view buys, they mostly all come in on the same day. They're all same day affairs. Even if you're building, I don't think there's a metric to show that after a certain angle, there's suddenly a spike in pay-per-view, significant spike in pay-per-view buys. I don't think so. I think they all come in on the same day. So you really have to the very last day to hype your pay-per-view. That being said, I think the build to All Out has been a mess. And I think it's been a mess for numerous reasons because of the injuries that plagued AEW with the top people over the summer. All of these people then deciding to come back. I think that was also a problem. All of these people coming back, just, and it's like, well, we all have to shoehorn them into all these things. And honestly, I really feel like Tony Khan was scattered. I feel like on most things, there wasn't any focus. Not any focus. There was a lack of focus. There were things that were very, very precisely done, whereas the rest was just like a jumble. And I think there's not a better example than Rampage right now, where he's filling the show with all sorts of stuff on a 60-minute show, and he's not letting anything breathe. And this has been, a criticism from a lot of people, over a long period of time, that AEW doesn't leave things breathe. They'll announce something and then it'll be next on to the next thing, right? It'll be, we're going to say something happens. Now let's go over here. Now it's kind of like a, Crash TV kind of situation. And as funny as the Excalibur, spouting off the entire next week's card within 15 seconds is, it's also very exhausting to listen to when everything is go, 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 go all the time. Because, AEW doesn't let time for things to breathe. And I think the all-out build right now is suffering from that. I put a poll up here in the chat that I'm going to close right now. And I asked the viewing audience, are you excited for All Out 2022? 40% of the audience, 29% of the audience said very. 40% of my viewing audience said yes, whereas 20% said somewhat, 9% not really. Right? So there's still a significant proportion of people who are excited, and that's good. On my end, I really feel, and again, maybe it's just me in this circumstance, and it could be, I feel like we don't have time to breathe and to let these matches sink in, to let this build sink in. I feel like it's always a go, 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 go situation here. I feel like he's in a rush to build this, and I think he is in a rush to build this. We just need, we just like to be able to savor our stories a little more, savor the moments a little more. I think that's normal. I think that's normal. And I'm not necessarily saying that it's a terrible thing that's going to spell the doom and gloom of the pay-per-view. I think it's going to do fine. It's going to do very good numbers. Is it going to do as good as last year? Of course not. It's not, there's no pay-per-view AEW is going to put on for a while that's going to do as good numbers as the return of CM Punk to professional wrestling. We're all going to be real with ourselves here, okay? But it's still going to do very good. It's still going to be a very sought after show. Now, why did I go off on the all out tangent? Yes, that's right. Okay, because we were talking about rerunning this and everything, rerunning the match so soon and buying pay-per-views till the very last minute. So technically speaking, I don't have a problem with it, but I do feel that All Out this year is coming at you like a freight train, and you're not standing in front of the freight train. You're like on the side of the tracks, and it's just gonna, and it's coming, and you're like, whoa, and you can't make out what the wagons are. You could say, oh, that's sugar, that's coal, those are the giraffes for the circus. You can't really, you can see the giraffes, but you don't have time to appreciate the giraffes. Does that make sense as an analogy? I feel like my double dipping analogy was better for the but I guess the point I'm making here is that there's going to be the doom and gloomers who are going to go out there and say, because there is no main event, this pay-per-view is going to fail. I'm going to say, everyone chill the fuck out. Relax. We don't need everything. I don't think it's going to be that big of an impediment. I really don't. It's strange, but I don't think it's that big of an impediment. But because I love the chaos. See, I'm tuning in next week on Dynamite again because I want to see how this plays out. I'm excited for next week on Dynamite. Because of the chaos, because it's unpredictable, because I was not expecting a world championship match to go 3 minutes. I will add a caveat here. This is the thing that we have to keep in mind. AEW is getting away with this because it's effectively the first time that they put a big time world championship match with huge stakes, unification, and effectively swerve us into a non-match. This wasn't a match. We're going to be honest with each other. This wasn't a match. So we like it and we're excited because we haven't seen it from AEW before. If this becomes a trend, though, if this is something that we start to see more and more, it will become a problem and we'll suddenly start being very reminiscent. And I know a lot of people hate this, and I hate it myself, doing WCW comparisons, but that's what it is, where you advertise a main event, but you do the bait and switch like this, because this is what it was. Bit of a bait and switch. Not as terrible as saying the match is not happening, this is not going to go down, not that bad. But look, I question the people who bought tickets to see this show. I question if some of them purchased tickets on the strength of knowing that they were going to see CM Punk versus Jon Moxley for a title unification match. And they were like, holy shit, we're going to be in for a treat. If I was in that audience, and it's hard for me to say because I wasn't there. Main event was spectacular, don't get me wrong. But if I'm buying a ticket to see this show, and WrestleTix over on their Twitter account, they released the information on the same day as Dynamite yesterday. They opened up like an extra 1,000 seats, which was significant. That's a significant indication that they were expecting a lot of walk-in traffic, meaning that people on the same day were like, bro, I got off work early. By the way, I just checked my phone and it's CM Punk versus Jon Moxley tonight at whatever the fuck. And so let's buy a couple of tickets and let's go. Like, that's why you release tickets on the same day, for foot traffic, for same day purchases. I'm convinced there are people who bought tickets on the strength of that match alone. And if they were a little annoyed at this, I'm okay with it. Because I would probably be a little perturbed. I'd probably be a little annoyed. Look, Will Ospreay in the main event was fantastic. Do not get me wrong. I love the main event, but I'm also aware that Will Ospreay is he's not everybody's speed, right? He's an acquired taste for a lot of folks. So if you're there and you're going to see one match and you're like, I have to watch Will Ospreay wrestle for 20 minutes. Nah, man. These are all things I can understand. Which is why I'm saying, I'm just adding a little asterisk to my enjoyment of this situation. I enjoy it, but I don't want it to become a habit. I don't want it to become a thing. Because that's the thing, right? Is that AEW holds a lot of goodwill amongst its fans. Tons of goodwill. Because every time it's promised, maybe a couple of side exceptions, every time it's promised surprises, big debuts, so on and so forth, it's delivered, right? It never outright said CM Punk is going to debut at the United Center. They never said it. They implied it, but they never said it. That the United Center was sold out on the promise that CM Punk was going to be there a year ago, and guess what happened? CM Punk showed up a year ago. Unadvertised. Filled up the arena. That, and meanwhile, social media dropping hints, so on and so forth, never outright saying that he's going to be there. That's how you build goodwill. You have these big debuts. You said, we have someone big starting next week. Boom. Okay, maybe 1 week we have a special big contender to come into this tournament, and it turns out it's fucking John Morrison. Oh well, you can't win them all. But most of what you promise us turns out to be fantastic. And you know what? Following this, you had Christian Cage who had to cut a promo, and I think it was lost here. It was lost in the confusion and the shuffle, and it was a good promo. Don't get me wrong, but it was just like lost in the desert here. But then after that, Ricky Starks came out, cut an excellent in-ring promo, great fiery promo about friendship. You'll notice when Ricky Starks frowns, how hard he goes with his frowning. Oh, Heather, nice to see you, by the way. Sorry. Nice to see you and welcome. Nice to see you again. He frowns so hard that I'm afraid he's going to pull a muscle. Like he's a very, very intense, determined, fierce frowner. Like, look at me. Like, look, I'm frowning. So, well, you don't see much because of the glasses. I'm like, That's nothing next to Ricky Starks. It feels like, he's bringing down a third of his forehead and it's overlapping on itself on top of the bridge of his nose. I'll get to the main event. This is my show. We're getting a mutiny in the chat, folks. We get Jon Moxley, who cuts a wrestling lover's promo. That's how I'm going to call it. That's how I call it. It was a lover of wrestling's promo. Saying he is professional wrestling. He is the guy in this industry. And I am remiss to find anyone else who is more representative of pro wrestling in 2022 than he is. I don't know. I don't know who. My Wrestler of the Year list is somewhat short this year. It's not as short as last year. Last year there was one guy. To me, there was one guy, only one guy. This year, there's two. Jon Moxley's one of them. And now it's time for the main event. You happy now? AEW World Trios Title Tournament first round match. The United Empire trio of Aussie Open, Kyle Fletcher, Mark Davis, and Will Ospreay defeated Death Triangle, Pac, Penta El Zero Miedo, and Re Fenix. This ruled something hard, something fierce. This was an incredible television match. Now, I'm going to tell you guys, again, this week, we're spoiled. Spoiled by television wrestling, week in and week out. And it thrills me to be able to add WWE to this conversation because the Kevin Owens Chad Gable match was very good. We're getting quality matches on a weekly basis. We've been getting them all throughout the history of AEW. And it continued last night with what a lot of people, such as Evan in the chat, are calling one of the greatest television matches to ever be broadcast. And I will gladly say, I'd back that up a little bit, but all right. Like, great. I think we can all agree that this was an amazing match. Fantastic. I loved every second of it. And I think it boils down to a question of taste. I will likely remember this match. I will likely remember Daniel Garcia and Bryan Danielson too from last week much more. And on that level, it becomes a question of preference. But there is no way that we cannot sit here and say we are starved for good wrestling on television, because we're not. We're spoiled. Spoiled. Out from the get-go too. Phoenix and Ospreay having this fantastic exchange. This amazing back and forth. Everything they did, and everything that Ospreay did with Pac was so tight. Just amazing. And you know what this match reminded all of us? I will include us all in this. Reminded us of how fantastic, absolutely fantastic a pro wrestler Pac is. He is probably the perfect pro wrestler. He looks like a beast. He's cut, he's built, he can do the power moves, and he can do the aerial insanity. I think he is the perfect pro wrestler. I don't know why I looked at this match and I'm like, what is he doing with the all Atlantic title just going around fucking OTT defending it? Give this guy a run with the main belt. What does Tony not see in him? That double stereo poison Rana spot. Are you kidding me? Ridiculous crucifix bomb by Penta on Kyle Fletcher. Pac hits a German suplex. Will Ospreay gets right back up. Oz cutter. Avalanche brainbuster by Pac. Did you guys know that Will Ospreay legit has neck issues? You wouldn't know. Huge rolling stunner by Rey Fenix. He goes for, not he, but Will Ospreay goes for a Stormbreaker. It's reversed into a Rana. And Pac goes up hitting for the red arrow, the black arrow, right? I'm sorry. Pac goes for it, but Ospreay lifts the legs. And he just landed over the legs. And that did not feel good for Will. Did not feel good for Pac. It didn't feel good for anyone. A destroyer by Penta. Pac moonsaults to the floor off of the 8-inch, 6-inch round wrestling post, not off the turnbuckle or off the ropes. It's like the size of this big. Kip Sabian interferes. He thinks he's under he being Pac, he thinks he's under the box, but he's not. Who the hell cares? Someone that got beat up. Kip Sabian attacks Pac from behind to set up the match at All Out. And this also allows the United Empire to triple team Death Triangle for the win. What a fantastic main event. Absolutely outstanding. And then what happens? The Elite come out. And then we get that juicy Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay standoff. It's so good. And yes, I heard the post-match promo from Kenny Omega where he's basically deriding Will Ospreay, and Will Ospreay all he can do is stand there and his boys are holding him back. And I love me a good work. Elite versus United Empire next week is going to rule. And this is what I'm hoping, because you know Will Ospreay is going to bring it. You know the Jacksons are going to bring it. I'm excited to see how much Omega is going to bring it in regards to the injury angle that he's running. So let's save that as a talking point next week. But what I'm really excited for is for Aussie Open to finally get like a real deal opening to shine. And I feel that if they start pairing off with the Bucks, then things are going to get really, really interesting. Because Aussie Open, this is the thing. A lot of us have seen matches from Aussie Open over in Rev Pro on the British circuit. And anyone who has will tell you these guys are fantastic. They're phenomenal as a tag team. Just absolutely phenomenal. And I can get anyone who's watched them only on AEW go, are they really this good? I don't see it. And I get it. And I think that with the Bucks are going to give them time to shine. They're going to work off of their own strengths. I'm excited for that match next week. And clearly, there's still some ammo to this Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega stuff, which I'm stoked for. I'm really, really stoked for, and I kind of feel that's happening in New Japan. I don't know why, but I have a feeling. It's my instinct, my gut is saying that this is something that's going to happen in New Japan Pro Wrestling Because like Kenny said, it's like, you couldn't beat Okada. You lost to Okada, but, I left New Japan in your hands, and, you can't live up to it, son. And I know also, I know Jim Ross and Taz were freaking out at what Will Ospreay was doing, right? And that's something, especially when it comes from miserable old Coot JR. It's nice to see him have a little spark again. It'd be nice if he was able to work his emotions a little more with other members of his regular roster, you know what I mean? But we'll take what we can get. But yeah, I mean, this is great. This was great stuff. Just great stuff. Great stuff to end the show. But we're not done talking about AEW just yet. Because on top of, all of the backstage news, the Hangman Page, CM Punk business, which is still, Tony addressed it this week and was talking about how, CM Punk has some unresolved anger or whatever. On top of all of that, we learned that Eddie Kingston got silently suspended after a backstage altercation with Sammy Guevara. It was PW Insider. PW Insider getting the big news this week. They reported, and I'll read the report directly from Mike Johnson, if you don't mind. And Chad, I would love to hear your opinions on this as we go along. Wednesday morning, PWInsider.com noted during the "We don't need the stinking name show for the PW." Oh, Jesus Christ. That's a hell of a plug they put right there. There was a story making the rounds among talent that there was a heated issue between Sammy Guevara and Eddie Kingston backstage recently. Since we recorded the podcast, PW Insider confirmed with several sources that there was an altercation in Minneapolis several weeks back following a Sammy Guevara promo that got physical after Guevara returned backstage. Kingston confronted Guevara, taking issue with something he said during the promo about Kingston's appearance. The two were separated, and Kingston was suspended for several weeks. He has not been at AEW events since, and the expectation is that he will return next week. When reached for comment, Kingston confirmed the suspension, stating, quote, "You know the truth. I wouldn't lie. I was wrong for being unprofessional. That is the blind fact. He did what he did, and the public can judge that. But I know for a fact I was wrong," unquote. Now, at the time that PW Insider put this out, there was no response from Sammy Guevara, right? And it seemed, we were talking about an altercation. People thought it was a punch, but, Dave Meltzer chimed in and he said, it was a verbal altercation. There was not specifically a fight. People keeping them separate. There might have been some touching, but, that was the long and short of it. Sammy Guevara put out a statement. Actually, he gave a statement to Fightful, which they released on Fightful Select, as a out of respect for what they do there. I'm not going to read verbatim what the statement said. You can go, subscribe, whatnot, and maybe at this point it's been reported more freely. I don't know, but out of respect, I'm not going to do it. But the crux of what Sammy talked about in his statement was that he was considering himself a professional. That, look, here's the basic story he was saying is that usually before going into a promo, without going over the bullet points, the wrestlers will share with each other, look, I'm going to talk about this. Are you cool with that? And the wrestler will say, and the other wrestler will say, yes or no. I'll tell you, this is what I want to say, but you have to give me feedback if you're cool with that or not. What he says is that he was a professional, and he communicated to Eddie that he was going to call him fat, essentially. But Eddie did not do the same. neither through Tony Khan, the producers, or directly to him, right? So Sammy basically says in his comment that I was doing this out of my own character. I'm an asshole. Everyone thinks I'm an asshole, so it would make me a top asshole to call a top babyface, someone that everyone likes, Eddie Kingston, to call him fat, to body shame him essentially. But Eddie he wasn't professional, you see. He didn't communicate with me, right? So he started flipping out. He started throwing things around. He said, you can't call me fat. And, he's trying to face palm him and so on and so forth. And then they were split apart and Eddie was sent away. And Sammy says in his statement that, he went for anger management. I'm like, holy shit. I'm going to tell you one thing. Look, straight off the bat, ground floor, right? I'm sure both of these guys are at fault here. It always takes two to tango in these types of situations. Eddie's he's a volatile guy. Sammy, we're getting to know Sammy. Seems like a bit of a hothead himself. Again, kind of like what I was talking about earlier with Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa. Not everyone working with each other is gonna get along. That's just impossible. That's just not a thing. But I am gonna say this. I am gonna lay this out here. You have two statements here, and one guy, in this case Eddie Kingston, comes straight out and he says something very, very basic, and he talks directly to Mike Johnson of PWI, and he says straight up. Not PW, Pro Wrestling Insider. PWI can also mean Pro Wrestling Illustrated, but Pro Wrestling Insider. And he says to him, Mike, here's the deal. I was in the wrong. He says it word for word in the quote. I was wrong for being unprofessional. That is the blind fact. He did what he did and the public can judge, but I know for a fact I was wrong. Taking accountability, responsibility for what he's doing. And he leaves it at that. And that's all we need. Honestly, that's all we need. Don't need to go any further. Sammy comes in with an essay, and he reiterates his version of the story. But at this point, we don't care about his version of the story because the other guy admitted to doing something wrong. But he wants to continue driving the knife in here, wants to continue burying the hole, digging the hole, wants to continue going. That's what he's doing here. I was a professional. That you check with other people what they want to be said. I have worked programs with Matt Hardy and Chris Jericho. This is what he says. I'm paraphrasing, but this is what he says. I've worked programs with others like Matt and Jericho, professionals, not these weirdos like Eddie Kingston who are not pros and who flip out and don't follow the rules, right? So what am I supposed to do? And all he does is deflect, try to dump more blame on Eddie Kingston. And as I'm reading the statement, I'm like, I don't understand why he's doing this. And he looks like an ass doing this. He's coming off as a complete and utter jerk because he's piling on. Well, all he could have said is Eddie went off, he owned up to it, that's cool, but I hope it doesn't happen again. Like, it could have been just as simple as that. But no, he decides to give us his side of the story when it was completely unnecessary, when he didn't have to defend himself. Now he feels like he has to defend himself over something that another guy completely owned up to. And all he's doing here is throwing more and more shade on Eddie Kingston, and it stinks. It's a terrible statement. Now, if these guys have backstage heat for whatever reason, like I said, look, it's cool. I much prefer the chaos than anything else. I won't say it enough. This kind of stuff, I think, it's part of the business, and it's one of the reasons why it makes wrestling spicy and interesting. So I'm not here necessarily picking sides. And if anything, like, you know, I've dropped a couple of times, you know, in my regular job, I do PR all the time. This is a very, very poor PR move because because one guy already took responsibility for it and you just keep shoveling shit on him, but he's already taken responsibility. You look like a brat, Sammy. You look like an ingrate at this point. Because all you're doing is continuously shoveling things on a guy who's already owned up to it and said, yeah, it's my bad. He did what he did, but what I did, it's on me. And that's it. No, he didn't apologize, but he doesn't owe an apology to us in the public. So that's between you guys. Is that why Sammy decided to go down this road and say, oh, he didn't apologize, he didn't come and shake my hand? That's shit that should happen behind the scenes and is none of our fucking business. But now Sammy is making this our business. And now he's going to wonder, oh, people love to hate me and I don't know why. And there you go. This is a reason why. And honestly, you have to be able to take a step back and have just enough self-awareness to be like, look, Eddie Kingston is a beloved wrestler by the AEW fans. He is a darling amongst online fans. Everybody loves Eddie Kingston. Are you going to go on this campaign against him? That is also very ill-advised. I'm telling you, some of these wrestlers could benefit from having some PR advice. Because if he had come to me and was like, Warren, what should be the strategy? Is like, send out a line, say, just, you know, I heard Eddie's response. I'm glad he owned up to it. To me, you know, puts everything to bed as far as I go. Something like that. We're good. Not this on a fucking notes app or whatever. I'm convinced he wrote it on a notes app. Oh, Sammy Guevara, the character, not Sammy Guevara, the wrestler. Jesus Christ. He doesn't. Clearly, they don't like each other. Clearly. That's fine. Now their match is up in the air for All Out. I think it should go. I think they should do it anyway. And Eddie needs to have the clear win here. That's what I do. Give the people what they want. That's exactly what I do. But I'll tell you, Sammy's response, and I promise you, read it if you have a chance, if you have the possibility, if you can get your fingers on it, your eyeballs, more than your fingers. Read it, and in the context, realize just how terrible a response is when someone has already responded. Yeah, my bad. Because if Kingston had come out combative in his response and be like, Guevara was coming after me and he was saying shit about me, and Eddie Kingston said, it's my bad. It's on me. Terrible. And we're still not done. I want to talk about this stuff about contract tampering, because we had heard about that a couple of days ago, almost a week ago, I think, at this point. Or we're talking about Adam Page being not Adam Page. What am I talking about? I'm confusing two completely different stories. There's a report that comes out that a high-profile AEW star was contacted by someone in WWE, and now Dave Meltzer gave more insights into it. He said that there were multiple people contacted by WWE. Here's the report. I'm reading off of the Figure 4 online here. In talking about a meeting that featured Tony Khan, Kenny Omega, Chris Jericho, the Young Bucks, and others talking, Meltzer said it wasn't just one contracted wrestler that was contacted by WWE, but multiple people. It was said this was during a talent meeting that they had. For context, a talent meeting that happened in AEW. It was said during the meeting by Khan that AEW sent excuse me, let me start over again. Warren, Jesus Christ, the long-term storytelling of the onset of your stroke is fun and all, but please read properly. It was said during the meeting by Khan that AEW Legal sent an email to WWE co-CEOs Nick Khan and Stephanie McMahon warning them not to tamper with any contracted talent. Brian Alvarez did not have a lot of other notes from the meeting other than saying that he understood that the quote-unquote vast majority of attendees came away feeling good about how things went. Now, multiple people were contacted by WWE. And then we start talking about tampering, right? And you'll notice on, Dave doesn't talk about tampering. He says contacted by WWE. Because trying to say too many things at once here. As far as I understand, there is no such thing as contract tampering in this circumstance that is professional wrestling. Now, I'm not a contract lawyer. I do have a work contract with my employer. So I decided to chat it up with someone in legal, someone I get along with at work. And they're like, look, can you give me some insight on this? Talk to me about contract tampering. And I, outright told them, and they themselves were like, well, look, I don't understand. You'd have to show me one of these contracts so that I could have the full-fledged picture here, right? But since this idea of contract tampering in sports exists, usually when there's a governing body that exists over a sports league or, a bunch of franchises, an organization that oversees all of the contracted sports figures, athletes, and they establish these rules. It's not usually something that's in a contract. It's usually something that binds. It's something that binds the owners of clubs or sports teams or whatever, that binds them together, right? So, it's like he gave me the example of the NFL, where the NFL has a window where negotiations can happen during the free agency period, right? Because as long as a football player is contracted by a team, another team can't come and try to make him offers. That's contract tampering. But there are periods that are reserved for this, which is completely legal, and so on and so forth. He says the problem that becomes that exists, that's inherent with contract tampering, and why it is difficult to prove in any circumstance. He says even with your contract, Warren, we'd have difficulty proving it, is that we have to, if we want to pursue litigation in a civil court, by the way, because it's not a felony, right? If we want to pursue litigation, we have to be able to prove that whoever tempted you over to the other side forced you into breaching your contract obligations before your contract came up. And he gave me the very clear example. Let's say you talk to one of our competitors and they say, we're ready to make you an offer for twice the amount of money that you make. You have to start in a month. Okay? You have the right to come to us and say, I'm terminating my contract. I'm quitting. I'm leaving. But you're on an NDA for 30 days. So if they say they want you in a month, that's fine. If they say they want you to start next week, you can't. So if you start in a month, there's really nothing we can do because we cannot prove without a shadow of a doubt, unless we really want to pursue and we really want to get ugly with it, we can't prove that you left because these people contacted you while you were still under our employ. Because technically, there's no such thing as, there's no to to break your NDA, your non-compete. It's not called a non-compete, but if you were to break your non-compete after your contract, then we might have a leg to stand on. If you were to fake illness for the rest of your contract while letting it run out while still collecting a salary from us, for instance, and then going to work for another, that could be perceived as tampering because they're forcing you into breaching your contract. So he says, for your wrestlers, I don't see how anyone can call this tampering because it's not an association. Everyone just picks up the phone and says, hey, how you doing? They can chat with each other very informally and say, so when's your contract up? And it's up to the wrestler to decide whether to say it or not. And so that's the thing, is that in tampering, there's always two people. It goes hand in hand. There's the tamperer and the tamperee. So even if you want to stomp your feet and go, what a vile thing to do by WWE, so unsportsmanlike and such, what a dishonorable thing to do. Even if you want to go down that route, someone who breaks their contract off of an offer that they got is still as guilty as the tamperer. The tamperee is still as guilty as the tamperer. Tampering. But that's the thing, is that it takes two to tamper. So you can't just put the blame on one organization. If the other guy says no, then he's flawless. That's not a problem. And the other guys just tried their luck. So I asked them, why then would the legal department of this wrestling promotion, if tampering isn't a thing, why would they send an email off to the CEOs of the other company to let them know, back off, motherfuckers, right? And he said, look, I don't know. I'm not in there with their strategy, but if I were to do that, that would be to protect myself legally if there were ever a case that had to be open. That's just me having proof, if it were ever to go to court, to say, look, we were aware that they were doing this. We sent them an email to ask them to stop. So that's evidence on your end. It's protection on your end. So it's he said the CEOs probably got the email and they pressed delete. They pressed delete and they sent it to their recycling bin, and they'll never think of that email again, probably. It means nothing other than for the people who sent it, who are just establishing the fact, if it were ever to go to court, we were aware that they were doing this. They were doing this as early as August 2022 kind of thing. It's all right. This all makes sense. So I think it's not that big of news. I don't think it's that big of news, because it all makes sense to me. Again, I'm not an expert, but all of the way it was explained to me, the way everything was laid out, just made a lot of sense. Because there is no governing body of wrestling. There's no, if WWE and AEW worked under one same league, a commissioner that would oversee their operation, the everything happening with the talent, and they could have some rules established on that level, but there isn't. So it's hard to call tampering on any level here. Johnny Gargano returned to World Wrestling Entertainment this Monday on Raw in what I would call a successful surprise, very successful surprise, and one that I took everyone off guard, that legitimately surprised everyone, that everyone was very, very happy to hear about. And I think there's been more positive reactions than negative to it because it's Johnny Gargano. He came out. I honestly don't think there's a. they could have made this debut any better. No talk, no insinuation that there might be someone showing up. Nothing was leaked, which is shocking. Nothing was leaked, and they come back from commercial, pan to the audience, and look, this is the story. I was at my desk, I was hanging out with Kristen, and we were both working. And we both had Raw, like I had it on my other monitor. She had it on her TV. And, we were sort of half paying attention. And we're going along, doing our thing. And then, you hear the clap, 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 clap of Johnny Gargano's theme. And I'm like, and I'm doing my thing. And I just lift my head. And I don't turn to the screen. I'm like, I know that. Why does that sound familiar? And then I turn my head to the screen. I see the Rebel Heart logo, and I'm like, wait, hang on. Then the music kicks in. Gargano on the screen, and I'm like, Kristen, Johnny Gargano's back. And I'm just stunned. And everything sort of rises. And I'm like, Johnny Gargano's back. He's back. He's back. And as you're looking at the audience in Toronto, as you're staring at them, they're reacting the same way I am. Everyone's sort of like, wait, what is going on? It's like there was this swell of, we were not expecting this at all. And I think it was fantastic. The Toronto crowd was up on their feet, and Toronto and Johnny Gargano had a very good relationship. He mentioned the DIY match. He mentioned against the team once known as the Revival. He also had a match with Adam Cole there as well. It's fantastic stuff. I thought that was just amazing. And a great return. And you know what? Like a legitimate good get back for WWE. This is one where people got excited about on Twitter, and I was like, sure, I completely get this. Yeah, he's not this well-established main event top guy, but Johnny Gargano has a huge following. He was the definition. He really was part of the backbone of NXT during these very crucial final years of the Black and Gold brand. I'm not necessarily including the Way stuff, because I'm talking about when he was proving takeover after takeover that he was one of the top 3 workers in the company, the entire company, not just NXT. The guy that we were sitting around and we were like, and we were cursing the fact that he was in WWE because we were never going to see him wrestle Kazuchika Okada, for instance. That guy. And he's back. And that's a real get. That's a real solid get. A guy that people really do like. That people have been, that there's always been a groundswell of support for Johnny Gargano. He's always been a fan favorite. Always. Unquestionable. He's a guy that avoided going on to Maine because he knew Vince wouldn't know what to do with him. Now, this is someone where I'm like, well, if Triple H knows what to do with him, it's put your money where your mouth is time. Let's make it happen. I'm really excited for that. I'm really, really excited for that. Now, the idea here that follows all of this is that, like I said, it's a good get return, right? It's not like Karrion Kross. It's not like, the weakest members of Hit Row. It's not bringing back fucking Dexter Lumis, who I love. And again, these are all guys. Dexter Lumis, I think, is the guy that I like the most. But Dexter Lumis is not a top guy. Dexter Lumis is a character, but he brings him back and he's still doing Dexter Lumis things, so I'm like, okay, this is fun. But I don't know why people got excited for Karrion Kross returning in the first place. His run in NXT was miserable, and I don't remember anyone saying this guy has it. Everyone was like, what the hell is going on? Hit Row doesn't have their star. And people, they'll be able to carry the act. There's just the three of them. No, they won't. We saw it last Friday. The star of this act is missing. They have an excellent worker in Ashante Diadonis, who is legitimately a very good pro wrestler, but not a superstar. They think they have the star with Top Dollar, but he's a tryhard. Plus, he stinks. And B-Fab she is a good hype woman. She's very good at that. She's not a star. She's not a centerpiece. She's not a Bianca Belair. So when people got excited for these returns, I was like, what are we even doing? What's this? Johnny Gargano coming back, looking strong, looking motivated, happy. Let's fucking go. Let's see. Now, this is interesting because then we start calling back, let's see what we can do with him on the main. And you know what? Here's the thing. And I see it in the chat, and I even tweeted it out. Y'all can have your snarky takes about how, about Gargano's wrestling style, which is absolutely fine. But the fact is that this is a legitimate good wrestler, top guy, who can potentially be a top guy, and who has nothing but fresh matches to offer to the main roster, who is opening up the valves for some good matches. And yes, I absolutely want to see Cody Rhodes and Johnny Gargano. And let it be let's have the why am I so violent comeback. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Because this is absolutely good get back. It's finally a good stone to add on the Infinity Gauntlet which probably some of you have seen with Triple H with the Infinity Gauntlet with the mid-carders on it, and Bill Bodkin on the Bob Culture podcast last night referred to it as and I loved it. He referred to that meme not as the Infinity Gauntlet, but as the mid-card mitt. And I thought that was the funniest thing. And I'm going to use it over and over again. And this is the last time I credit you, Bill, because from this point forward, the mid-card mitt is the funniest way to call it. I just loved it. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. And I'm personally, the rest, and here's another thing. The wrestling business is better off with Johnny Gargano in it. Again, have all the snarky takes you want about, the staring off into the distance, and being overly dramatic, being the melodrama of it all. The point is, we all remember those matches, maybe outside of the cinematic match, which was terrible, objectively bad. But all the other matches, the Gargano Ciampa feud, it's up there. We remember them. But the world of wrestling is better off with Johnny Gargano in it. Because we're constantly on the lookout for the scumbags and the assholes, the people who have shady pasts, the grifters, the bad people in wrestling. And we're like, we got to weed those out. We got to keep them out. We have a legitimately good guy who's back in pro wrestling, who's back in the business. He's going to be back doing something. Something that you feel that you can support. So, snarky comments aside, so on and so forth. Who would you prefer? Like, I prefer to have Johnny Gargano's than Matt Riddle's any day of the week. Well, of course, Warren's going long. Well, that means we're good. We're going to get some content for the members, and that's always a good thing. That's a win for the members, right? Because the members then they get the extra content. I'm going to be talking about Road Dogg replacing Jeff Jarrett in WWE. We'll talk about the New Japan Pro Wrestling and their crossover show, the IWGP Women's Championship Tournament that was announced. This is all fantastic stuff that we're going to talk about. WWE's apparently not going to go TV 14 for a while still. All content that I'm going to save. Konosuke Takeshita, he wants to come live in the United States. He says this was not an excursion. I want to live in the United States. I want to make money here. Let's talk. If you want to get that juicy extra content, it's very simple. This is what you have to do. You become a member of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel. YouTube.com/MrWarrenHayes. You can sign up right in the chat. You can sign up. You can click on join on the channel page. And you'll get it. Going Broadway this weekend. I'll record maybe tomorrow, Friday, at the latest Saturday. But I will record for the members. Yeah, like Evan says, it's only $1. I'm not breaking the bank here. But we are going to wrap this up by talking about NWA 74. I promised you, if y'all behaved, if you were good kids, this entire chat room during this entire show, I was going to take the last few minutes of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show to talk about the big NWA 74 anniversary show. This happening this weekend at the Chase Ballroom in St. Louis, Missouri. Legitimately lovely venue. I can absolutely see, 100% see how the NWA's long history with the Chase. I think it's a beautiful. I was there last year. Beautiful venue, just fantastic place to see some wrestling. I loved it. This weekend, 2 nights, August 27th, 28th, 74th anniversary show. You can't contain that in just one night, kids, pals. You can't. You need 2 nights to celebrate the National Wrestling Alliance, per says William Patrick Corgan, who is currently on his media tour all over Fox News. And you think I'm joking. I am going to run down this exciting card. We're going to start with night 1. There are, including the pre-show, there are 13 matches. and then people are going to bitch about AEW putting on quarterly pay-per-views with like 8-9 matches on it. This one has 13. And it's a 2-night affair. On the pre-show, we have the Country Gentlemen, AJ Kazanza and Anthony Andrews versus Gold Rush. No, I'm not doing a bit. There's 3 H's at Gold Rush. Gold Rush. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it. Jordan Clearwater and Marsh Rocket, accompanied by Austin Idol. I don't know what. Luke Hawx of Hawks Airy versus VSK. I actually like VSK. That has the potential. That could be a fun little prelim match. Then the other pre-show match, Rodney Mack, accompanied to the ring by Aaron Stevens versus the Pope. Didn't Aaron Stevens retire? Didn't they do a whole thing about him retiring? How old is Rodney Mack? 51. And the Pope here is on the pre-show. I mean, I'm sure this is significant for NWA fans. Then we have the World Women's Championship match. Camille, champion, taking on Taya Valkyrie. Taya's on a bit of a belt collector gimmick these days. I would say, look, Camille has had the title for like 70 million years at this point. And I don't think they ever found really the woman that they felt credible enough to take it off Camille. But I think Taya's the girl to do it. I think Taya has the credibility, the size, she can go. She comes across as someone who could beat Camille, who has always been pushed very, very strong. So in this match here, because these are two women who I'm aware, I know of their work. I know of their work. I know what they're capable of doing. Taya. Taya dropping all her belts to go back to WWF? No. She hasn't. She's Reina de Reinas right now. I don't think Trips is calling her back. I don't think she's calling her back. He's calling her back. Then we have the Burke Invitational Gauntlet for a shot at the NWA World Women's Championship. Samantha Starr, Kylan King, Tootie Lynn, Missa Kate, Max the Impaler, Maddie Rinkowski, Angeline Love, Genocide, Natalia Markova, and Taryn Terrell are all going to take part in this gauntlet. There's some legitimately good talent in here. Kylan King being here, Tootie Lynn. Tootie Lynn, I swear, guys. I swear, if you haven't seen a Tootie Lynn match recently, she's going to be unstoppable. Like her training with Davey Richards is clear. It's changed. She's changed so much over a year. Just fantastic stuff. Max the Impaler's great. Maddie Rinkowski is another woman who's improving by leaps and bounds. Genocide's always solid. Taryn Terrell is pretty good. That's Drew McIntyre's girlfriend, right? If I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I mean, there's what are you going to do with Natalia Markova? Or fucking Angelina Love? What are we even doing here? But, to go to the, we'll talk about it in a little bit. Then the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Championship is going to happen here. Homicide taking on Kerry Morton. What, are they going to strap Ricky Morton's son here? I feel like that's something they could do. Because this show, the NWA, we like to sit around and have a gas, have a laugh at the expense of the NWA, wondering, who is this for? Right? Who is this for? Who is the NWA for? And I think it's for old heads. I think it's for people who really, really don't like modern wrestling and are like, well, at least the NWA will give us what we want, kind of thing. And, Kerry Morton has that connection to, he's a son of, use what you got, man. If that helps get him over, that he's the son of a wrestling legend, go for it. Go all in, brother. You know what? My prediction here is that Homicide's going to drop the strap. There you go. Jax Dane is going to be taking on Cy Yon for the NWA National Heavyweight Championship. I don't know who these people are. No, I know who Jax Dane is. Hang on a second. I know who Jackson Dane is. That's not true. But Cy Yon. Oh, it's Robert Anthony. Oh! Scion? Is that an old gimmick of his? Let's see, was Egotistico Fantastico. What is Scion? Scion. I think Robert Anthony is great. I really like Robert Anthony. At least he's not with fucking Frank the Clown. Anyway, I have no... Look, I mean, I much prefer Robert Anthony over Jax Dane, so hopefully he'll win. But tag team match for the NWA World Tag Team Championship. The Commonwealth Connection, made up of Doug Williams and Harry Smith, a.k.a. Davey Boy Smith Jr., taking on La Rebellion, Bestias, yes, and Mickable 450. I don't know how to say 450 in Spanish. Okay. I mean, Williams and Smith are champions right now, and I think that should tell you everything you need to know. Bully Ray is taking on Mike Knox. My God. Former Aces and Eights pal from TNA Impact going after each other in a tables match. Who wanted this? The Miserably Faithful, a team made up of Judeus, Sal the Pal, and wait, this is real? And Gags the Gimp? What? Gags the Gimp? It's Father James Mitchell's stable. The Judeus, who I know is Sal the Pal, who's Sal Renero, and Gags the Gimp. Wait a second. I gotta see this guy. Gags the Gimp, and they're all under what's his name? Father James Mitchell. Also, is he just a guy in a mask and that's it? Is that just the thing? He's in one of these latex masks. Is that it? Oh no, okay. No, he has horns. Okay. He's like a little devil. He doesn't look like all that much of a submissive, to be honest, which is usually what you'd expect out of your gimp. You know, you want your gimp to not outshine you. You know, as a dom, you want to make sure that the gimp knows its place. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. Gags the Gimp. And they're taking on the ill-begotten Alex Taylor, Jeremiah Plunkett, and Danny Deals. What? This is a gag match, right? Danny Deals can't be wrestling. Holy shit. Okay. All right. Well, that'll be a nice little palate cleanser after Bully Ray versus Mike Knox. EC3 controlling his narrative against Matthew Mims. Matt Cardona is going to be facing an unknown opponent at this point. A big debut for whoever will be facing Matt Cardona at this. Who is that even going to be? Sasha Banks. Yeah, you wish. And Chris Adonis is going to be taking on Odinson. Is that? Yeah. Professional wrestler Odinson hails from Asgard. Okay. I've got nothing. That's night one. What's the main event? You want to bet it's Nia Jax? Oh, it's Paro's partner. Oh, now I know who we're talking about. Okay, thank you for the... Okay. See, sometimes the names don't mean anything to me, but then there'll be a connection. Or I'll find their Twitter handle, and I'll be like, oh, it's this person. Now I know who that is. And I'm like, oh, okay. Matt Cardona versus the Titan Adam Strongman. Adam Strongman is what they'll call him. The Titan Adam Strongman. I still think Trips is bringing Braun back. Why would they have canceled Control Your Narrative matches only off the back of Killer Cross leaving? I don't think so. Bully Ray and Mike Knox is the main event. Okay. On night 2, we have 10 matches. 1 pre-show match, Angelina Love versus Taryn Terrell. Okay. Then we have Caldas versus Flip Gordon. I am sorry. That's oh. See, I was telling you guys that the Nick Aldis stuff was a work shoot. I told y'all. I was convinced him going off and the minute MJF did the work shoot thing, I was like, look, we are going to enter a period where everyone is going to try to do this, and we're going to have shit promotions who are going to try doing it. There's going to be people who are going to try to do the work shoot, and there you go. You have NWA who tried to do it with Nick Aldis. No, they don't respect me. No, I'm pulling out of the main event. And oh, he just makes his way back on the card. And I was reading that he's going to get some mic time as well. So come on now. I told y'all it was a work shoot. Colby Corino versus... And Flip Gordon... I think I say this every time Flip Gordon comes up, right? Every time. But I'm going to say it again. Is there anyone in recent years in professional wrestling who has fallen out of favor with the fans so hard and fast as Flip Gordon has? Because let's not forget, in the build to AEW, right? When we were still in the all-in era, Flip was, he was on Being the Elite. No, I think Austin Aries, I think it was long-term storytelling. Flip, everything just like literally flipped. I don't know what happened. Because this guy was on Being the Elite. He was he was on all the things and people were rooting for him, right? His gimmick was Cody signed, book me on your show. And that was the thing. Book Flip. That was the thing. How many people in this room here thought that Flip Gordon was going to be signed to AEW? Well, not soon after that, because he started. There's a reason why the Elite guys just cut him off, right? We don't know. Is it more than just the anti-vax thing? And he completely changed the style. I know that there was the anti-vax thing, but there's something. It was even before the pandemic. Like that to me, that was a nail in his coffin. But he was so hot. He had the underdog babyface energy about him. People were rooting for him. And then the Elite cut him off. It's weird. There's a story there. That's all I'm saying. There's a story there. Colby Carino versus Caprice Coleman, which actually should be a lot of fun. That should be a lot of fun. Tom Latimer versus Judeus, which is the opposite of Colby Carino versus Caprice Coleman. Mercurio versus Magic Jake Dumas, accompanied to the ring by Christy James. Magic Jake Dumas, or Dumas, like Amy Dumas. Oh, like he's legitimately, his thing is he's a magician. He's a wizard. He's an old-timey, like Victorian wizard. Magic Jake Dumas, professional wrestler, actor, director. I've never heard of this guy. He's kind of like, he's the Prestige kind of magician. Davey Richards is going to be defending the MLW National Openweight Championship against Thrillbilly Silas Mason. Did the episode of MLW of Davey Richards winning the Openweight title, has it aired yet? We are going to go to Cage Match and find that out. Because the last time I checked, it's taped, but it hasn't aired. This is exactly like Tyler Bate coming on NXT with the NXT UK World Championship, or the NXT UK Championship, while there's a tournament going on in NXT UK. MLW, Davey Richards. Let's see the matches. Battle Riot 4. It has, look, as far as Cage Match is concerned, it has not aired yet. We have the date of the taping, but not of the broadcast. I love this. Wrestling's back, baby. Pretty Empowered. Ella Envy and Kenzie Page. I like Kenzie Page. Versus the Hex. Allison Kay and Marty Bell. This is a Kings Highway street fight for the NWA World Women's Tag Team Championship. This should rule. Allison Kay, Marty Bell, especially Allison. Allison's fantastic. Then we have another NWA World Women's Championship match. Camille or Taya Valkyrie, depending on who wins night one, versus the winner of the Burke Invitational Gauntlet winner. And I believe, I think this is a good way. Let's say we go down Chat's theory that Taya is going to start dropping her belts to go back to WWF. What am I talking about? Camille, this is maybe a good way to get the title off of Camille. Put it on Taya, but Taya then dropping it the next night to whoever else. Tootie Lynn, for instance, who is a local. She's a St. Louis local, which was weird to me that they didn't have Win last year, because when she was in the Berg Gauntlet last year, that crowd went nuts for her. They had Chelsea Green go over instead. I was like, I'm booking the hometown favorite here. Everyone in the audience knew who she was. They were popping huge for her. Then there's a tag team battle royal for the vacant NWA United States Tag Team Championship. There are so many titles here and so little, wrestlers. Anyway, there's a bunch of tag teams here. Hawks Airy, Gold Rush. Gags the Gimp is in this one. Gags the Gimp is in this one. Clearly my favorite to pull this one off. I'm voting. I'm throwing my support behind Gags the Gimp and Sal the Pal. Oh, Team Ambition is representing here. Mike Outlaw and Camaro Jackson. Okay, that's cool. They're not gonna win though. But yeah, give it to Sal and Gags. And then the main event, Jesus Christ. Trevor Murdoch versus Tyrus for the World Heavyweight Championship. I honestly don't know. Like, this has everything to be... This main event has everything in it. Has all the necessary equipment to be the worst. I don't think there's anything... There is nothing enticing about this match. I don't even know if there is an NWA fan who's like, let's fucking go with this. Here's the thing. Trevor Murdoch, I think he's fine. I think he's a good worker. Tyrus is terrible. He's terrible. The Funkasaurus. Brody, Bronson, Broken, what do they use? It doesn't matter. This is a bad main event. Like, this is what you have on your posters. This is garbage. This is a bad main event. And we're not even going to get into all of the Brodus Clay, thank you. And we're not even going to get into all the nonsense that goes along with Tyrus, right? It's hand in hand at this point. Like, did they really think that doing the work shoot and taking all this out of the main event was going to make things more interesting? Because I have people who cover the NWA, who get paid to cover the NWA for websites, for other content creators. They get paid to cover the NWA. They follow the NWA, and even then they're going, I have to sit through this. I have to sit through this garbage. They're not excited. Why would they be? King of the North left a super chat. Thank you very much, Evan. He says William Patrick Corgan is a war criminal. It's definitely a war criminal on good taste, for sure. My God. And there was someone on Twitter, and I think it was Tape Machines, who pointed this out. He said, this weekend, I can choose to watch Trevor Murdoch versus Tyrus for like $25, or I can watch Naomi Marufuji versus Eddie Kingston for $19. What do you think? What do you think is the best value here? Marufuji Kingston or Murdoch Tyrus? Jesus. I mean, all joking aside, the question that always maintains about the NWA these days is, who is this for? And I'm convinced, look, the world of wrestling, the setup in professional wrestling right now, the ecosystem, let's call it that. Let me start over. The ecosystem of professional wrestling in the United States is better off with the NWA in it, because there's a place for all these guys and gals who can't get signed anywhere else, or who were signed elsewhere and aren't necessarily needed anymore for whatever reason. They can still wrestle in a place that has a decent amount of visibility and get paid. Right? Like, it's not as if this is, it's not an Ian Rotten operation here. So it's still an important part of the ecosystem, like MLW is, like Impact is, like Ring of Honor is, on different levels, right? But as you know, as a viewer, a consumer of pro wrestling, I cannot but ask myself, who is the NWA for? And the only thing that I can hitch my wagon to is to say this is for old heads who are set in their ways when it comes to wrestling and who aren't interested in what's hot, what's new, different styles of wrestling, who want to stay into some kind of comfort zone where there is a good level of just, I don't know, mediocrity. And I don't want to say that all the wrestlers here on this card are mediocre, but in the presentation and how things are put forward, because you can't sit here and tell me that Trevor Murdoch versus Tyrus is not going to be a shit show. It's by design at this point. These people are just like, they want names, they want faces they recognize. I don't know. Maybe it is the Fox News crowd. Maybe these are all people who, spend whatever time they have in front of a television set watching conservative news. It could be. It could be because this doesn't speak to me. It speaks zero to me. I'm not offended by it. I'm not saying it should speak to me. There's more than enough wrestling out there right now that speaks to me. If the NWA wants to cater to an audience that is entirely not moi, go right ahead. And hopefully they'll make at least more than 3,000 buys, which is what they did with Empower, because if they do only 3,000 buys, that show will be a failure, right? Just like Empower was. Let's not forget. 3,000 buys is a failure. We don't do the pay-per-view again. That was the weekly wrestling inspection. Wow. So, we're going to wrap it up. We're done. We're done for tonight, but become a member of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I've still got more stuff to talk about. I'm going to record extra content for the members, for the good old-fashioned, lovely people that hang out here on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show, that are members of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel. So you can become a member, join us. I'll be going Broadway, be talking about more stuff, talking about Jeff Jarrett no longer having a job. We're going to be talking about the IWGP Women's Championship Tournament. We're going to be talking about Konosuke Takeshita and TV ratings, TV 14 ratings, not ratings. I don't talk about ratings. You can go to other places to talk TV ratings. But I want to thank everyone who jumped in the live chat tonight and joined us. It was a very good evening. Lots of people showed up. I'm really excited about that. It was a busy week in wrestling, so I'm assuming people are like, it's always good for us podcasters after that. So I appreciate everyone who showed up tonight. Thank you all very, very much for that. And thank you for listening, for tuning in. If you're listening to this on your own accord, the video on demand on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes or on the podcast, thank you very much. In the meantime, hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next time.